last night at Prairie Public, there was a debate between North Dakota's two lone candidates for the U.S. House, one being Kelly Armstrong, the incumbent, and the other being Cara Mund. I talked Cara into hanging out. I said, just hang out. She had other engagements. I said, be in Fargo and come on over to the studio and give us a chance to visit tomorrow. And she did. And so I appreciate that. Cara, welcome to the studio. Good to have you on News and Views.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Grade the debate. How'd you do?
Good. You know, you can always look back and things that I wish I would have said or things I would have done differently. But with only an hour, I'm proud of my performance, and especially because it was our very first in-person debate. And knowing that the incumbent has done this before, this was my very first time. It was a great learning experience.
It goes fast, though, doesn't it? That hour.
It does. And trying to keep track of time, too, knowing like what topics we've hit and then, how much time's left and what I hope we still cover. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was a good debate.
Debates for me are about separation. They're about, okay, he said this, she said this. That's a big difference. Last night, where was the separation? What did he say that you just flat out disagreed with and said, no, this is where I stand?
Mm-hmm. Right at the very beginning, the first question was on the Dobbs decision. He's been very vocal that he thinks it's bad law. He thinks it's great law. I think it's bad law. And again, him talking about how it needs to go back to the states and then bringing to light that Lindsey Graham is now completely contradicting it. When the opportunity comes, now they want to do this ban of 15 weeks. And so we spent probably about 10 minutes just on that issue. And it's really important that people know I'm not a one issue candidate, but it is the forefront issue right now going into the next session.
So when you talk about the Dobbs decision and you talk about the fact that you believe a woman should have her reproductive rights, I get that. I understand it. But do you think that what you're up against is the ability to raise money off of it? Because since the Dobbs decision, the Republican Party has taken that argument and made that argument in the state of Kansas, a very conservative state. They've been rolled. They didn't just get beat; they got beat bad. Then you start looking at it like, okay, did the money dry up? And the money dried up because what they told people they were going to do, they did do. They overturned Roe, and there was nothing left to go and do. So now Lindsey Graham introduces this nationwide deal because now we've got something else to champion. Do you think this is about money? That's a long way to ask that question, but I'm really curious.
Yeah, it could be, and it shouldn't be. I don't even think that this issue should be politicized in general. And both parties, like I think the Democrats should have codified this earlier. We talked about that in the debate as well. But I think, we just didn't expect this to happen. It had been precedent for 50 plus years. We knew it was a vulnerable decision, which is why we asked those justices under oath, when they were nominees, are you going to uphold it? And they said yes. So, both parties are going to take advantage of the issue. They're going to push it. But at the end of the day, the people who are suffering are women who are being treated like second-class citizens.
Okay. Are you concerned at all that the judiciary, which was always because that was the foundation. Politicians can be politicians. They can lie. They can, cause an insurrection. They can do a lot of different things. But the judiciary was always there to be fair and impartial. That's the lifetime appointment type thing. You look at the polls, and I saw a number of polls this week. The American people don't trust the judiciary anymore. Should they? Is this a major problem you would need to work on?
Yeah, I think this is a huge problem. I've been very vocal that one of my legal inspirations is RBG, and it's not based solely on her issues, but the fact that, she was a woman coming into this role that's been dominated by men, and at that point, it was a 96-1 confirmation rate. And again, we weren't politicizing the court. When you now have justices deciding when to step down based on who the president is, when we aren't confirming justices and we wait till the next president comes in, again, it has become so politicized. And one thing we could potentially look at is term limits for Supreme Court justices. And
would you stand for that?
I would. I think
I don't know how you don't after they lied in their confirmation hearing.
Exactly. And also appointing people to the bench that are younger so that they can hold numerous more years. Again, we want the most qualified individuals making those decisions, especially when there's only 9 of them. And giving them 18 years, rotating out every 2 years, that is plenty of time to be on the court. But we need to do something because we can't keep moving forward with this polarized political court system.
So you're running as an independent against what is a political juggernaut. You've got the Republican Party in North Dakota, and the Republican Party in North Dakota is the political party in North Dakota, with all due respect to my party, and I'm proud to say my party, the Dem NPL. That being said, the Republican Party has the money. Kelly Armstrong has his own money, very, very wealthy, oil interests, everything that comes with it, attorney. He's done pretty well in the financial end of life. You've raised the issue of, hey, I'm running as an independent. Nobody owns me, which I think resonated with a lot of people. How do you make that work? Because he could call someone and say, here's my internal poll. She's coming really close to beating me. I need 20 grand, and they're going to write him a 20 grand check that day. I mean, they will that day. How do you take something like that on?
Yeah, I think highlighting the issue. I have not taken any PAC money, any special interests. I'm not bought by a party. I pulled up his FEC filings, and just in this race alone, he's raised nearly $1 million from PACs. 565 PACs, I believe, have donated to his campaign. And so, again, you have to ask the question, who is he representing? Is he representing the people of North Dakota, or is he representing the money and the corporations? And based on his voting record, I think it's pretty clear that people come second to the money and the corporations.
Do you think Kelly Armstrong's a hypocrite?
Yesterday, I asked him about his PPP loan money that the company has taken out. So Armstrong Corporation, if you go to federalpay.org, they took out PPP money, and he spent a large portion of the debate just talking about the reckless spending. And so in that sense, yes, I do think that he's a hypocrite. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that there's reckless spending and then also take that money and expect it not to be found. And if that's being done publicly, I keep wondering what's being done privately. And so in that sense, and then also, going back to the Dobbs decision and women's reproductive rights, his website, and I pointed this out in the first debate, and he still hasn't fixed it, and he's mentioned it in both debates, that healthcare decisions should be between the patient and the doctor, which is what I agree. And then you can't turn around and say, oh, except in the case of women. You don't get that. Patients are men, they are women. We need to see them as equal. And so in that sense, too, yes, I think he's a hypocrite, because you can't have it both ways. You can't say for men it is a possibility to be equal, and for women it's not.
Ask Cara how we can help support her run without simply giving money.
Yeah, just getting the word out, coming with me, walking with me. I'll be at the NDSU homecoming parade. I'll be at the UND homecoming parade. The debate that we'll be having October 11th for KFGO. I think that's a live audience, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So again, come support.
That's at NDSU.
Yes,
yep.
Yes. And just the more people who are out there, I mean, we need to make our voices heard. And I think for so long, many of us didn't feel empowered, or that we didn't have a candidate. So if what I'm saying resonates with you, there's so many different ways to do it that's more than just financially. It's supporting and pushing out, some of the video clips. Let's spread the word, social media, whatnot.
Cara says she would caucus with the Republicans. Why? What if the caucus supports Trump as it does now?
Yeah. So that's been one misconception that I've seen. I've been very clear that I haven't made my decision. I naturally assumed when I first started to run, or when I first ran, we are a very Republican state. I worked for a Republican. I knew a lot more Republicans than I knew Democrats. When I was kind of thinking through this idea, I talked with some Republicans, which have not come out and said that they knew in advance. But people knew in the Republican Party, so I just assumed that that's the party I would go with. But then immediately we started off with the name calling me this radical Democrat. Both Representative Armstrong and the party have name called. And that's not something that I want to be a part of. There's also these two rules that I know we've talked about before, where you now have to pay to get the party's endorsement. This should not be a pay to play system.
On which party is that?
This is the Republican Party.
Okay, because I'm not going to let that go unchallenged.
Yes.
My party doesn't have that.
Yes, exactly. And it shouldn't be there. It should not be a barrier barrier for people to even get the nod. And then going off getting the nod, if you try to get the nod as an independent or as a Democrat, now you can't run with them for 6 years. And I look back to like what my thinking was 6 years ago and how much we've evolved and changed, and you hear more viewpoints. And again, it's just to pigeonhole people into a set way of thinking, not bringing innovation, not bringing outside perspectives. And so those are two rules that I would like to see them lift to make this more accepting party and a more representation of what it means to be a North Dakotan. Well, you caucus
with the Republican Party if you win.
I need to see what they're going to do in the next month now. They are playing dirty. And the name calling, I've brought it out. I said what's so fascinating to me is that when the Democratic candidate dropped out, this could have been a slam dunk seat for them. And I made it clear at the beginning, that's what I thought I was going to caucus with. And they feel this need to now continue to use the gendered terms, but then also just to continue to try to say that I am not a Republican. And at the end of the day, I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. And I'm going to have to choose one party over the other. And so you think they would be more strategic and guarantee that they would have that seat. But there's other factors to look into it as well. Which party is going to be the majority? If I want to be a great voice for North Dakota, I want to have those additional abilities that you would have as a member of the majority. So, things like that are in the back of my mind. But at the end of the day, the party that I'm going to choose is the party that I know is going to accept me, that's going to be willing to allow me to think an independent voice and to vote in an independent manner without the name calling, without the ostracizing, and who's going to make all North Dakotans feel like they are welcome.
Has the Democratic Party really been the force behind a lot of what you've done?
No, they're not. And I think that's what's so fascinating to me is I am a one-woman show, and I've proved it now since August 8th, right? Like I come in by myself. When I turn in my petitions, I'm by myself. There is no one, there's no big group behind me. This was not the Democrats putting me up to this. It was me as an individual in my capacity seeing that my voice wasn't being heard and that something needs to change in this boys club and in this Republican supermajority dominated state where there are people who think that it's important to uphold democracy. There are people who think that, it's none of our business what happens in your doctor's appointments or what happens in your bedroom.
A number of people asking for yard signs already here. I just want to tell you that. Let's get to the phone lines like we promised we would as soon as I click on the right button. And Abby goes, Joel, you should have had that done already. Then I'll know exactly what the person's name is. Let's get to Scott. Scott, you're on with Cara Mund. Go ahead.
Good morning, Joel and Cara. I feel that Kelly Armstrong missed an opportunity to become a statesman instead of a politician when he turned down a chance to be on the January 6th committee. I guess I would ask Cara what she would have done in that situation. And the only other thing I'd like to say is I hope that if she's elected, she will become a politician like Governor Link was or Heidi Heitkamp, that I believe they loved all the people of them and represented all the people no matter what party they were from. Okay. So I guess I'm curious what she has to say about January 6th and Kelly turning that down. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I can't believe that he turned down the opportunity. Again, it would have been a huge opportunity for North Dakota to be seen, to be heard. He's criticizing this committee. He's called it choreographed. And unless you're at that table, you don't know. And he's also, he continuously, him and Senator CRAMER have said that they weren't watching it. Last night, he corrected that and said he has been watching it. But again, it's like we don't know. When he has stated now that he is going to be voting for Trump in 2024, and we still don't know, what's going to happen in the next 2 years, that concerns me. It is crucial that we have leadership who's going to uphold our democracy. And if he really thinks that this is some choreographed routine, he should have been there. He should have stayed at that table. And that was one thing he pushed back on me in the debate. He had said that he doesn't do, I made the point, I don't want Nancy Pelosi and I don't want Kevin McCarthy telling me how to vote for North Dakotans. And he pushed back and said, I vote my own way, which his voting record does not indicate that. He votes strict party lines. And if he really was going to be this voice for North Dakota, he should have stayed on the committee.
Says, Cara, I've been looking through your website. It's very void of any policy positions. Could you clarify where you stand on some of the more contentious issues in the country? Issues like the Second Amendment, gun control, illegal immigration, inflation. Let's go with the first one, gun control.
Yeah. So I support gun owner rights. I have been very vocal that in a case of, our gun issue is also a mental health issue. And so we need to be focusing on that as well. But when you send your child to kindergarten, you should not be fearful that they're not going to come home. That child shouldn't have to wonder, is today the day I'm going to have to do for real the act out of what happens if there's an active shooter. You shouldn't have to go to a 4th of July parade and look around and wonder if someone's going to open fire. Same with going to the grocery store. And so I would be in support of red flag laws through adequate due process, making sure that those people who are suffering are protecting not only themselves, but also their communities. And then, they can have their guns back once that's been treated. And, it's just a small step, but also proving that, I'm not here to infringe upon your Second Amendment rights at all. I think it's one of the best rights that you can have, but we need to have responsible gun ownership. And
the biggest risk that I have to my gun ownership is the fact that gun owners like myself don't support red flag laws.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest risk. It's so common sense. It's so easy. I always say that most people in D.C. don't know what a semi-automatic weapon is, and they're like, oh, you're supposed to be a Democrat. No, that's just the truth. Red flag laws are a whole different thing. So I'm glad to hear what you said. How about illegal immigration?
Yeah, I think we need to fix our immigration system. I think we need to secure our borders.
How do you do it?
Yeah, it's tough. I disagree with building a wall. I think their immigration issue is not a structural issue. It's a policy issue, and making sure that we have an easier channel for people to come into this country legally. We need to remember that, all of our ancestors came in trying to seek a better life. And so to keep those avenues, less barriers, but also, removing the stigma. Our past president labeled our immigrants as, rapists and that they're these bad people, and they're not. They're people that are coming in to our economy and are helping to boost it. We're seeing now more than ever the worker shortage, the people who need these workers to help take these roles, and especially in North Dakota. In August, we had 18,000 open jobs. Businesses are closing. I know, Johnny Carino's here in Fargo and in Bismarck had to close. We've had numerous businesses closing. And so, we need a more streamlined path to be able to make sure that people who are coming into this country are coming in legally, and that they're, seeking that better life, and we're helping to provide it.
How about inflation? How do you get your hands around inflation?
Yeah, inflation's hard. And there's so many factors. I'm seeing from the Republican Party continuously blaming Biden, but we need to look at, Putin coming in and the war on Ukraine. It's the prices are influxing across the world. It's a supply and demand issue when it comes to gas prices. So, leasing federal lands, we need to open those when you compare the Biden administration to the Reagan administration. So there's a lot of things that we can do. I think a great step was the Inflation Reduction Act. And I highlighted this in the debate. Representative Armstrong has said on 3 occasions. So he did a KX interview where he said that it's not going to help inflation until 2025. Then in our last debate, he said it's not going to help it till 2029. And then yesterday he said 2028. And he continues to change whatever year is most convenient for him. And it's, again, we have to do something to help people. And with the Inflation Reduction Act, for the first time ever for Medicare to be able to negotiate these prices is huge. To now have these price caps on insulin so that people aren't spending so much on their necessary, drugs for survival, but they're able to put it towards, putting food on the table for their families. We're all experiencing inflation, right? We see the impacts. Going to the grocery store now, it's insane. We need to get our hands around it. We have to fix it. But
do the two go together? And by that, and this is a smaller scale, smaller fix, but it's awful tough to compete if you don't have the workers to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Plain and simple. And we've got a situation where you don't have to make someone a citizen to be able to have them in this country to be a worker. And what's happening is there's this whole culture, this subculture of people who don't want to admit they use illegal workers in this country. And yet there's a whole great big need by industry in this country to find workers. And so how do you compete? Certain businesses, it seems to me, have grown to the point where they they can, but yet they're needed to grow more, they can't.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have workers. And so do those two things go together somewhat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, we're seeing it. These businesses that are having to close, that they're having to, raise wages. I do think the federal minimum wage should be raised. And we're seeing that businesses have to do this to be able to compete. And so, yeah, they go together. And, you can't address one without the other. And recognizing that, we need leaders in office that are going to work in a bipartisan manner and aren't just going to push the blame on the other party and not take accountability that this is a full government responsibility.
You went around yourself and you got the signatures to get on the ballot. I had a lot of respect for that. You're on a book tour. But after all that was done, the first interview I think you gave, if not one of them, was with me. Mm-hmm. And I asked you a question that night. And the question, I deserved getting spanked a little bit. And you spanked me a little bit. And here's why. I asked you whether or not you were old enough to be this next congressman. And you said, it's funny, but that question never got asked of the man that ran before me that was my age or younger. And I drove home that night from Bismarck going, I had that coming. Speak to that a little bit, because there's a lot of people saying that you're not experienced enough, you're not old enough to do this job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in our last conversation, I talked about my history up to this point, starting a charity fashion show that raised over $100,000 for kids in North Dakota, going to Brown University, becoming Miss America, knowing what it's like to represent the state at a national and even international level, serving as the face of an organization, serving, as the National Goodwill Ambassador for Children's Miracle Network hospitals, where I had those opportunities to go in and out of the hospital, and then going on to Harvard Law School during the time of a pandemic. There's always going to be criticism, but going after my age for everything I have done in 28 years, like I said in our last conversation, just imagine what happens in the next 28 after this. So that's also, I knew coming in that I would probably be attacked for my gender, I'd be attacked for my age and supposed lack of experience. And so to prove that to voters, I am still a one-woman show. I went around and worked to get those signatures, and I had great volunteers that helped as well. But I was out there. I wanted to be, talking to voters. I'm not going to hide behind a keyboard. I'm not going to hide behind, the first debate, I asked if you can actually physically see us, and was told that that's not a possibility because they didn't want to release the video. I have a lot of theories on why that was. But bringing that transparency.
I think we know why it was.
Yeah. Bringing that.
There are certain people that are after you in media.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think?
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely.
They have discounted and disrespect you since day one, and then for the fact that I did treat you with respect, they started bashing me. But that was to be expected. Mm-hmm. That was going to happen because of who I am and what I do. I can take all that. What I can't take is somebody not getting a fair shake to talk about issues. And the way I'm going to say this, Cara, and I'm going to let you respond to it. The way that you've been treated and the things that have been said about you, and it's been by conservatives. I don't want to sit there and take this, both parties crap. It's been by conservatives. Did you ever think it was going to be that harsh? Did you ever think it was going to be that vicious? And if you want, because there's videos out there of what they've been calling you, what they did, in terms of how they've attacked you. If you want to tell people what it is, right here. You've got the biggest radio audience in this state right here. Tell them. Mm-hmm. Tell them what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at the criticism that the incumbent is getting, and it'll be on his policy issues. And for me, it becomes these gendered, sexist terms. And it's not just for me, it's for most women that run in these races. And, you can attack my stance on being pro-choice. You can attack, my stance on the issues. But when you don't focus on policy and instead you start using these over-sexualized terms, it's what keeps women out of the process. And so I expected this to be a harsher race. I knew that they'd be coming after me probably for my age and experience, like I said, but they are just further proving that they just name call and that they try to, they keep women out of this process. And I released this video that goes through some of the comments that were stated. And at the beginning, I point out, 3 images of our North Dakota leadership. And you look at that announcement that Governor Doug Burgum made with the 1.5% flat tax, and his hopes to have that enacted. But up on that front, there is not a single woman. It is all men. And if we're going to be talking about women's healthcare issues and we don't have women at the table, I've continuously pointed out in these debates that I am the only woman. And last night, it was 3 of us. I was 33%. And that's more representation than women have in the U.S. House and in Senate. And again, you can go after my policy. You can go after, other aspects, but when you start taking a woman's gender and you sexualize her and you go after these terms that have nothing to do with how she's going to do the job, that's when there becomes a real issue. And as women, as North Dakotans, as leaders, we need to bring to light that these issues exist, and we can't just shove them under and say, we're not going to talk about it.
Cara, want to talk to you a little bit about last night's debate, because I've gotten about 5 messages already that, Congressman Armstrong was talking about serious candidate. They found that to be, these individuals I'm talking to found that to be incredibly sexist, and they found it to be condescending. I want to know whether or not you found it to be that way.
Yeah, in the moment, again, it's exactly what I expected him to do, and I've been watching him pretty closely. This is in line with his behavior in general. But now stepping back, thinking, if I was a male, would he have acted that same way? And I don't think he would. And going back to our last conversation on the sexist comments, just in general towards women candidates, and it coming primarily from the right, and I don't want to put everyone in that basket, but they're coming more from the right, and I think it's when you have these policies, Representative Armstrong voted against the Violence Against Women Act. He voted against the Pregnant Women Discrimination Act, your right to contraceptives, women's reproductive health. So when we put women on the back burner, we aren't, treating them like, we are treating them like second-class citizens with a voting record like that. How do we expect society to see them as equal? Because that is what he's indicating.
You have gotten so many text messages from phone numbers I'm not used to seeing. Let me share some of those. It says the Republican Party treats women with a lack of respect because they have become, in large part, the party of Trump. I want you to respond to that.
I would agree with that. Especially when Trump is making these comments about grabbing women in their private parts. I agree with it. And we need to change it. And, more women in this arena, I say there's a lot of ways to win. If we can get women more empowered to stand up to this behavior and to say, no, it's not right, and I'm going to run for office. You do hear it. Quite often, but you just have to keep pushing forward. And I don't want people to vote for me just because I'm a woman. I want them to vote for me because I'm the right candidate. And as a woman, I know what it's like to be silenced and not to be represented. And I think we're seeing that in his voting record, from voting against the PACT Act, not voting for our veterans, voting against infant formula appropriations, not voting for mothers and infants, voting against women's reproductive rights, voting against insulin caps. We are continuously silencing those who need help the most.
Let me rifle through some of these comments, and then we'll get to the questions. It says, Cara, you have won my vote today. Another one. I think Kelly won the debate, or Cara won the debate with Kelly Armstrong, and she looks and sounds like a candidate who has done her homework more than Kelly. The Trump lackey did. Well, I think this person had opinion going in. Another one. This young woman is wonderful. There's only a few folks in the political arena to which I stop what I'm doing and listen. I wish her well. Another one. Joel, I wish we'd quit calling candidates independent. Cara sounds like she would be a moderate. Such a better term. Moderates should be able to cross the aisle in Washington when policy makes sense. Both far left and far right have too much of a voice. We need more moderates. Your response to that?
Yeah, I would agree we need more moderates. I'm calling myself an independent because on the ballot, it's going to say Cara Mund, I. So I am identified as an independent. And again, I worked my way on the ballot to earn that I. And same here. This should be a job you have to work for, and you don't get it. One of Representative Armstrong's last comments was that he has this seat at the table, and I made it clear, just because you have the seat doesn't mean you get to keep it. You need to earn it. And so that's what I'm trying to do too, is prove to people that if I'm already doing this, right, I'm out there every single day putting 16-hour days, serving as my own campaign manager, PR, doing all of it myself. Just imagine when I have a staff behind me and what I'm able to do for North Dakota.
Somebody says and wants to ask you, does she think her Harvard school should use their huge endowment fund to help pay student debt? You got 30 seconds. Go.
I don't think that they would do that.
I guess what my read on that is, what they're saying is that the government shouldn't be paying off this student debt. It should be done with colleges with huge endowments like that. In other words, they should be helping. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think if we can give more merit need-based aid across the board, that would be great. The price of education is obviously unsustainable right now, and I'm experiencing it firsthand, right? I just came out. I have student loans, but I've been pretty vocal in that I disagree with President Biden's decision and how he did the student loan forgiveness. I see it as just a Band-Aid for a bigger issue, and things we could have done is, making interest rates start once you have graduated, not while you're in school. There's no way for students to pay that off. Also, these predatory loans in general.
Cara, I have to ask you this. In light of all the news that came out about Axios, the article, Kevin CRAMER, Drew Wrigley, both being active in an attempt to overthrow the election. I'm sorry, but that's what they were attempting to do. What's your take on that? If you were a member of Congress, you would have a role in this. So give me your take on what you've read and what you've heard and what you'd do.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned. In those January 6th hearings, they showed the clip of Josh Hawley running down the stairs, and Kevin CRAMER is right there with him. That is something that does concern me. We saw these Stop the Steal happening in Bismarck, and Representative Armstrong was there. I mean, they were all there. And as an elected official, you are held to a higher standard. And again, it's this partisanship game of like they are doing whatever they can to protect the party, but when your leader tries to overthrow the government, when are we going to say that this is enough? I am concerned with Drew Wrigley being a U.S. attorney at the time and why those comments were made. He has come on. He has said that there's nothing to be worried about, so I want to take him at his word. But at the same time, I would like to see those receipts, and I have to agree with former Senator Byron Dorgan that we should know this clarity and should not have to worry. And I wanna know that they're not lying and that they're not hiding something, because you are held to a higher standard.
Let's do it. Jay, do you have a question or a comment for Cara? Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I heard and saw the debate last night on public TV between Cara and Kelly Armstrong. And Kelly's a total Trump stooge who believes whatever Trump says and in raising money, rather than a man who believes in truth, justice, and the American way. It's said that good promising candidates in politics like Cara, who does her homework, that she'll have more difficulty in raising campaign money than skillful and cunning con artists like Trump does.
Okay, do you have a question though, Jay?
No questions, just comments.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. And some of that must be coming because you've brought a lot of passion out in people, both for and against, Cara.
Mm-hmm. I have. And like you said, I mean, the money plays a large factor, but also recognizing that unlike Representative Armstrong, I'm not taking this PAC money. I don't have a party behind me. And so when you look at the differences between us, it's like, who's going to represent the people? And I think it says a lot when you're not taking that money.
I want to go to some of these text questions in just a second, but the infrastructure bill. Congressman Armstrong has always been approachable for us, and I want to compliment him on that because Senator Hoeven, not so much. Governor Burgum, not so much because, they're going to get asked some tough questions. But one of the things that Congressman Armstrong said to me was that he wasn't going to vote for the infrastructure because the Build Back Better was linked to it, and he couldn't support one and not the other. When they got separated, he still voted against the infrastructure bill. How would have you voted on the infrastructure bill?
Yeah, I would have voted for it. And it was just a clear answer to me. We have 2 Republican senators who voted for it. You are the sole voice in the U.S. House. And to vote against it when North Dakota needs it, we have, 800 plus roads that need to be redone, the 480 bridges that need to be done, especially in our rural communities. And I've heard Representative Armstrong talk about this, and he made some comment that he owes you an apology, but at the same time, you owe him an apology. And it's like, no, we can't stop. We can't do these games. Like, you just need to own up to it. And when you make a reason for why you're not going to vote for it, this is the reason I hear all the time. Same with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's other parts of the bill. And it's like, we need to compromise. Yes, you're not going to get your way every single time, but you have to weigh the benefits, the pros, the cons. And in this bill, the pros clearly outweighed the cons. And we have 2 Republican senators who also agreed. And so, we tried to bring clarity to that. And his response is always, well, there's other parts of it. And exactly like you said, he talked about the coupling of the bill and even the Build Back Better. And, he keeps calling this the Build Back Mansion, and then it's the Mansion Inflation. And I mean, it's this continuous name calling. And again, we have to hit the issues. We have to stop this because we don't have time for it.
Well, and one of the things that I raise as a point is the hypocrisy of how government works. And the people in government work. You pointed out earlier that Congressman Armstrong took PPP money. I've done that with many different farmers as they've come on preaching that the government's got to get out of, and I say, well, do you take federal crop insurance? Do you take the subsidy checks when we got certain commodity problems? And they're like, well, I have to. It's like, wait a second, you can't really have it both ways. You can't sit there on one day and say, I hate the policies of the Biden administration, and then on the other day say, I'm taking the check. I mean, which one is it?
Yeah. And in our last debate, Representative Armstrong talked about how he was born into privilege. And, we had so many businesses who didn't qualify for these PPP loans. And I support the PPP loans. But you can't then come out against Biden's policy of forgiving $10,000 when your own oil corporation took $170,000. And it's this hypocrisy. And at the end of the day, the people who are getting hurt the most when you are, filling your own pockets and you're trying to go by this party agenda are the people who need the help.
And they're not loans, they're grants. I'm going to correct you.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
They are grants. I mean, he's never going to have to pay back the 170. John, you're on with Cara Mund. Go ahead, John.
Best of luck, young lady. First and foremost, yes, all 3 of our 2 are senators and our representative, they all need to go. And I'm speaking from a personal way that they don't do anything to help the little guy. Now, my question, please. To reassure the voters of North Dakota, what is the difference between you and Nancy Pelosi?
That's a great question.
Thank
One
you.
I should have asked. Thanks, John.
Yeah, I guess first response is that Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat and I am not. So, I mean, that's a huge ideology. Nancy Pelosi supported Biden in this decision to forgive student loans. I disagreed with that decision. She does lean far to the left. And like I say, I am in the middle. And there are things that I agree with the Republicans, and there's things that I agree with the Democrats. So I guess the biggest difference is that I'm not a Democrat, and the other is that, I am going to side with Republicans at times, and I'm going to side with Democrats at other times. And your elected leaders, they're not always going to choose to vote in a way that you like necessarily. Like there's going to be times when Republicans are upset with me. There's going to be times when Democrats are upset with me. But to knowing that at the end of the day, I am trying to do my best to represent the people of North Dakota and not some special interest, not some political party. And I'm doing it in a way that's going to uphold democracy.
You don't make it through Harvard Law School without knowing how to do homework. Okay, so take this with that in mind. When you look back at the history of America, and you look at, this country and the people that made it what it is, who do you look to and say, that right there, that's who I want to be? That individual, man or woman, is someone that is a huge part of why I live in one of the greatest countries in the world.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pick a certain person because I know that, whatever ideology, they keep trying to pigeonhole me into being a Republican or a Democrat. People are trying to figure this out, and I'm an independent. And whoever I pick, they're going to think that I think that way, or I will always vote the way that that person voted. And so there's qualities of leaders that I really admire. So the leaders that are courageous, that, aren't afraid to make those tough decisions, leaders that, don't always follow the pack, but again, do what they feel is best. Those are the people that I admire most.
Would Liz Cheney fit that category?
Liz Cheney would. And Liz Cheney and I disagree on reproductive rights, right? That's another thing. But, people have talked about, we've seen your past, like liking tweets of people that are on the left or people that are on the right. And again, trying to pigeonhole me. And it's like, this is part of the problem. Like, you're not always going to agree with a leader, but when they do something like standing up for democracy, just like Liz Cheney had, I applaud that.
When you say that people need to compromise, change their opinions when they're wrong, those type of things. Liz Cheney is not someone that would ever vote for me, and I'm not going to vote for her. That being said, when it comes to gay marriage and gay rights, she's got a sister that's gay, and she changed. Mm-hmm. She realized what she was doing was wrong, it was hurtful, and she changed her opinion on it. In my personal opinion, we need more of that. And so whenever I ask these questions and somebody says this, I don't like it. I like it when they say, well, okay, this is where I stand. It might change there's nothing wrong with changing if you know that you were wrong. And that, to me, seems like one of the things we're really missing in our democracy right now. It's like I'm locked in. They've got video of that. They've got audio of that. I've got to do that, or it'll look like I'm wishy-washy, or look like I'm stupid. Or do you see what I'm getting at?
I am. And that's why this rule with the Republican Party of this 6 years is just so wrong. We need to have the ability to change and learn and grow. And those, there should be people, going against my decision at times. And there's going to be times when I was probably wrong, but willing to come forward and say, now that I've learned more, I wouldn't have voted that way. But we need that transparency. We can't be so locked in our ways. And that's the thing, too, with Representative Armstrong. There's so many votes that I've said, I would have voted the other way. And after getting more information on it, he keeps saying, no, I'm going to be this way still, and I'm going to back it, which at some point, yes, okay, that's great. But other times you need to learn more. We need to grow. And if the bill comes up again, like I know he's going to vote against contraceptives again. He's going to vote against women's health care again. His voting record just keeps showing it. And we need to have those discussions. We can't have leaders that are so stuck in their ways.
Larry, you're on with Cara. Go ahead, Larry.
I just want to say I saw the debate last night. I listened to you guys this morning. She has my vote. There's no question. I've always said a Democrat in that seat, unless you're Earl Pomeroy, is not going to get elected in North Dakota. But she is a breath of fresh air. If somebody opened the window, she and Liz Cheney, I'm totally for it. She's got my vote.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Are you getting much of that response? I mean, what are you getting for feedback out there? And I know it's harder for people who disagree with you to come up and say, you're not getting my vote. But has there been a lot of positive response to your campaign?
There has been. And I think just people feel more empowered now that, she's speaking out against it. I'm going to speak out against it too. Same with women. There's been so many women that said, up until your candidacy, I didn't think choice was even going to be on the ballot. And so getting that feedback is helpful, because knowing that this is a tough race, it is still an uphill battle, especially with the amount of money that he has, both in his personal capacity with the party, with his campaign. But we need to have this grassroots efforts, because unless we put that accountability and transparency into this process, it's not going to come on its own.
Oftentimes when you hear someone talk and you hear their issues, you feel as though, okay, and as a woman, you certainly must have felt like, look, why are you afraid to talk about issues that deal with women? I understand that. If you're a man today driving in your pickup and you heard some of the focus of your campaign, you might, as a man, think, well, what does she think about what men need? I mean, are you addressing enough of the issues that my side of the gender, that men believe
Yeah, I think that's something I could do better, but also we're not in a time where men have been stripped from their rights that have been granted to them for the last 50 years. And so, this is something that I expect to come up in the next session, but making sure that people know I'm not saying vote for me because I'm a woman or that, women are better. I'm just saying we're equal. And the voting record is showing that women are a bottom priority right now.
Okay. I want everybody to watch that video, though. The people can sit there, and in the media in North Dakota, you're going to get drugged through the mud a lot. I mean, this is a very, very conservative state when it comes to media. Only a couple of us have the courage to go out and kind of challenge that. But that video that you put together that shows what you're going through and what's being said about you and said to you, and how you've got this whole undercurrent, the kind of undercurrent that we saw leading up to January 6th. That video need to be made. And to find out that 500,000 people have seen it, if you're listening to me right now and you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to see it. All right, where do they go? What's the website? What's the Facebook page? Where do you want them to go, Cara?
Yeah, just caramund.com. Facebook is Cara Mund. All social channels are verified. So there are a few fake ones out there, fan pages, whatnot. So find the one that's actually verified. You can donate by check, PayPal, Venmo. So trying to do as much as possible. But as an independent, I can't use the Win Red platform or the Act Blue platform. So I have to be, again, innovative and strategic in this process. But I'm grateful for the support that I've received.
Cara, thanks for coming on today.